So we're going to go over here to the extensions. We're going to do search for Eslint. Looks like I already installed Eslint here. So just look for Eslint, the one from Microsoft. So let me just show you. Just type Eslint in the extensions thing. Eslint should be the first one to pop up. Then make sure it's the one from Microsoft and make sure you install that. Once that's installed, I think the default options are already set for you, but just to make sure, go to File, Preferences, Settings. Now let's look at Eslint. There's a whole bunch of different Eslint options here. So we want Eslint on save. We want to make sure that Eslint on save runs and it's set to all. So the on save mode set to all, that's good. And it's pretty cool around here. I see the Eslint run. The linter runs as you're typing as well. So that's also good. And are there any other Eslint options we want to be aware of here? Just for my thing, I check this, always show Eslint status bar. And I think it shows Eslint stuff here at the very bottom. But this is totally optional. You don't need to do that. And I think the only other thing is just making sure Eslint enable is working right here. So Eslint, or you can type in the section here, Eslint enable, and make sure Eslint is just enabled right there. And that should do it. If you're only working in this one directory and you don't have any other conflicting things with Eslint, this should just be fine for your project. And that's it. Let me just show you how this works really quick. Again, I'm going to add that foo.js file, which, yeah, just make sure to delete that foo.js file after every time. It's not something you want to keep. I'm just going to show you how it looks now that everything's set up. So if I go function, see how the red line keeps like kind of pulling up right there? That's the linter right there telling you, hey, you're missing stuff. Then you go function foo, we'll make whatever function right here. Nothing in it. So it says right here, oh, foo was defined but never used. It's like, oh, okay, well, I better define it. So foo, or I better use it. So cool, I just use it later on after the declaration of the function. And something else, let's say console.log I. Like, wow, what is this? I is not defined. What? Okay, so you need to go let I equal 0. And then, cool, that little marker went away. And this will just help you with finding like typos or anything wrong with how you're typing out the code. It just lets you know the obvious things are wrong. It gives you a couple of false alarms with like globals, but we'll figure that out along the way. But definitely always have prettier and Eslint configured. Most professional projects do this. So if you're setting this up for your company, I highly recommend you set up Eslint and prettier. And most companies have stuff that run automatically with their using Husky and Git hooks. If this is the case for your company, check with your other devs on your team on how to set up your directory with Husky and your Git hooks. But right now, this will just help us when we're developing our code. And just to make sure nothing obvious is happening, so like you hit some error and like you don't know what's going wrong, usually Eslint can give you a hint if you've done something wrong in your code. And that's about it for Eslint. The next step we're going to look at is actually starting adding Nightwatch. And before I go on, I'm just going to let you know I'm like checking in code for my own personal directory right here or stuff. So I'm going to add just a git ignore file for me. Just so it's not a surprise for you and as you see it going up. So I'm adding .git ignore, and I'm just going to ignore like node modules. And this is nothing you need. I'm just letting you know because this file is going to be there, and you're like, well, what is that git ignore file? It's just telling like git to not look at git stuff. So I have like, if I didn't have this right here in the git ignore file, and I go like status, git status, It's like, oh, it's like looking at node modules. It's like, cool, I don't want you to look at node modules or recognize node modules or annoy me with that. Just ignore node modules directory. Now if I do get status again, node module is missing. So this is just for me, not for you, but I don't know, if you are setting up your project, then you're probably going to want to git ignore as well. Just a side note here. Since we're not going to be checking anything in or for our code for these examples and the rest of the stuff, I'm not going to go into too much more detail with that. Just letting you know what's going on here. All right, up next, we're going to look at installing Nightwatch.